Good evening, Bahamas. You're tuned into NB12 Weekend, broadcasting from Cable 12 Studios on Robinson Road. Coming up tonight in news, BOB's management undergoes an assessment. Fires on the rise in the inner city. Dr. Miles Monroe remembered. Plus, filmmakers prepare for the Bahamas International Film Festival. I'm Kyle Joaquin. We've got those stories and more straight ahead on NB12 Weekend. Topping news tonight, Bank of the Bahamas' Board of Directors has until the end of the year to assess its management and submit recommendations for reorganization to the government. And this, according to Managing Director Paul McQueenie, who was responding to questions about whether anyone at the bank could face repercussions following the revelation that BOB had $100 million worth of bad commercial loans. Dana Smith reports.
McQueenie said BOB management is now taking steps to return the bank to profitability in the wake of government's recent announcement to effectively bail out the company, absorbing $100 million in bad commercial loans. The move has raised questions about whether BOB staff could face disciplinary action for the bank's financial situation. Former Deputy Prime Minister Brent Simonet told NB12 last week at least one person should take the fall. When asked if anyone at the bank will face repercussions, McQueenie said, "Our focus now is getting the bank back on a path of profitability and growth. Our board of directors has been directed to assess its management and cost structure and to submit recommendations for reorganization to the government before the end of 2014. Government has created a company called Resolve Bahamas that will absorb the loans and hire others to collect on them." McQueenie said with the transferring of this debt, the bank is already on the right path. In addition, initiatives have been implemented to enhance accountability at BOB and reorganize various aspects. McQueenie said, quote, "Internally, important initiatives have been implemented to positively impact the culture, improve customer service, and enhance governance and accountability at BOB. The bank is seeing the benefits from a revamped sales and service apparatus, a strategic separation of certain back and front office functions, and a more defined organizational structure."
McQueenie's comments come as questions over the BOB bailout continue. International credit ratings agency Standard & Poor's also chiming in, listing the bailout as something that could potentially lead to a downgrade. Responding, State Finance Minister Michael Halkitis says government is aware of S&P's concerns, but the Christie administration is confident it has found a formula that will work.
I think what they're saying is if the government has to access resources and put money into the bank, and hence, having to either divert tax revenues or borrow funds to put in, then that would be a negative. And I think in general, when you look at whatever they say, they can also say, okay, if we don't contain our expenditure, or if we don't do a better job of collecting taxes, or if we don't get the reform right, if the economy doesn't grow, if there's a global crisis, if there's an interruption in our tourism industry, all of those things are negatives. And I think they point those things to us to give us an indication that, okay, these are some of the things you should keep your eye on, in which we know and we recognize that we have to contain it.
In its report, S&P named the bailout as one of the reasons it has maintained a negative outlook on the economy, and said if BOB's asset quality problems are not contained, that could lead to a downgrade. It was announced government will hire an accounting firm to go after the overdue payments, something that was also criticized by Simonet, who said government has difficulty collecting real property tax, so he doubts it will be able to go after the overdue commercial loans. But Halkitis said government is confident, insisting the firm set to be engaged by government has experience in this area and its sole focus will be to go after the loans.
We're confident because this will be their sole duty. And as we also said, we are very close to engaging a firm with significant expertise in this sort of workout. The idea being that you go and maximize the assets that have been transferred into Resolve Bahamas. Totally focused on maximizing the assets, whether it means realizing the security, selling the assets, or making sure that insofar as it's a commercial concern, that can be rehabilitated and made profitable.
As for how BOB got itself into this financial situation to begin with, Halkitis explained the recession affected everyone, but BOB, which had a substantial amount of commercial loans, was somehow more susceptible. He would not comment on whether anyone at the bank could face disciplinary action. Reporting for NB12 Weekend, I'm Dana Smith.
Well, Chairman of the Bahamas' Chamber of Commerce, Gowan Bowe, said Bahamians will be watching to see how the Christie administration handles the BOB bailout.
This is what I call our test case of our generation. It's not that it should be taken lightly when I use the term test case, but it is certainly going to be in the spotlight. I think you're going to have professionals watching it very closely because they want to see how it's handled, the information that's made available, how they're going to work through it, and whether we can have confidence that when similar adversities come our way, that we can handle it. And there's going to be a lot of scrutiny by external parties, the rating agencies, IMF and others that are watching us to see how this impacts our government coffers. So whilst it may be a 10-year workout plan that they're speaking to, I think they have to appreciate that the spotlight is then going to be on it for 10 years. This is not one where an announcement is going to alleviate the concerns.
Bowe called for more transparency as it relates to Resolve Bahamas and said government should provide more information on the process. As for whether he thinks anyone at BOB should face disciplinary action, Bowe said that's for the shareholders to decide.
You engage a board of directors to oversee the activities of management, and the board of directors are accountable to shareholders. So when you ultimately ask that question, the shareholders really should be turning and saying, am I satisfied with the performance of the board who had responsibility for the oversight of management? If I find that these were things outside of anyone's control, then it's not a matter of a scapegoat, it's a matter of saying, well, then I need an appropriate person who can handle it. It may not have anything to do with an inappropriate action. It may simply be that the skill sets or the necessary talent is not there.
From the crime beat, a mother and her 2 children are in hospital in stable condition tonight after they were shot in what appears to be a drive-by shooting off Blue Hill Road. According to police reports, the woman was standing in front of her home on Kim's Crescent with her teenage son and daughter when the occupants of a black Nissan Maxima and a silver Nissan Tiana pulled up and fired several shots in their direction before speeding off. The mother was shot in the lower back, her daughter to the upper back, and her son was shot in the ankle. The family was rushed to hospital. Police investigations continue. Firefighters were kept busy this year, battling a number of blazes, including several at the city dump and even landfills. Director of Fire Services Superintendent Walter Evans says while challenges at the city dump are on the decline, fires in the inner city are on the rise. Jasmine Brown has more in this report.
There have been several in the inner city areas, as you've mentioned, some of the communities.
Evans says with the change of season comes a change in the types of fires investigators respond to, as later in the year is usually when house fires increase. In fact, a house fire killed a man who was unable to escape the deadly flames that engulfed his home on Warren Street early Thursday morning. Still, Evans says landfills across the island and the city dump have all been hot spots for the fire services branch.
Last year, we were having some challenges because of the burning. And again, the period generally when we do have challenges with fires like that is during the dry season, which is predominantly between January until May, or during the year, of each year, and that's pretty much when we have a heavy volume of those calls.
In February of this year, a blaze at a makeshift dump site and quarry off Bernard Road took weeks to extinguish. Then in March, firefighters worked around the clock to put out a cluster of fires at the city dump. Evans says conditions at the dump have improved due largely to better practices carried out under new management.
Of recent times, we have not been having any challenges to that extent at the landfill site. It's now under new ownership, And so there's a different strategy that they do have in place. They have some resources that we know that that they would use for any event of anything that do take place down there. And if anything really blows out of proportion, obviously with us, by right of being the authority sovereign jurisdiction, certain actions we will carry out and ensure that things are done for the basic or the mere fact of public safety.
Reporting for NB12 Weekend, I'm Jasmine Brown.
And as the nation continues to mourn the death of world-renowned religious leader Dr. Miles Monroe, condolences and messages of encouragement continue to pour in from international leaders and those here at home whose lives he touched. Director of the Grand Bahama Youth Choir, Kevin Tomlinson, says Monroe was a local man with a global impact.
He always had this thing he used to say to me, "I'll see you at the top," when I was a kid in the food store. I still believe that I will see him at the top. And so I thank him, his life, and the legacy that he left. And I want it to be an example that maybe one day myself, other Bahamians can create legacies like that where we can leave a global impact.
Meantime, Monroe's longtime friend Shivago Lang says he had an extraordinary ability to make everyone feel like they mattered, regardless of their failings and successes.
The nation has lost a wonderful light, a wonderful leader, a great mentor, a moral voice, and so it's really a very, very sad moment, and I feel it deeply.
Grand Bahama Minister Dr. Michael Darwell says Monroe was more than a spiritual advisor. He helps to boost Grand Bahama's economy.
When he recently established a new BFM church here on Grand Bahama and made a commitment to the island of Grand Bahama to assist us with economic development, promotion of the island, and to help us create entrepreneurial opportunities as well as job creation. So for that, he's always been grateful to me. He's personally been a mentor to me, a very close friend, and his involvement here on the island of Grand Bahama in the last 2 years has just been tremendous.